his journey and the importance of innovative and creative design in the postmodern age.
Hello. Hello everybody. Hello in the back. Hi there. Well, sounded a bit of a mouthful that, but hopefully I'll unpack it a little bit. First of all, I can't believe I've got myself into, with my big mouth, another fine mess I've got myself into by offering to do this kind of talk. But anyway, like most talks, they all seem to start off by the talker, in this case myself, answering two simple yet fundamental existential human questions. Sounds a bit big, but the first one is, who am I? Like, who is this talker, you might ask? Why is he here? And why am I here? That's two big questions, big meaty subjects that we often ask ourselves, and it's in our very human nature to ask them to ourselves in an effort to sort of raise some sort of self-awareness and understanding, reveal a sense of place and context. You're like, oh God, who am I? Why am I here? So for the sake of efficiency, I'll try and skim over the details and jump straight in. In telling my story of who I am and why I'm here, perhaps it may help in my small way and remind us all to recognize the importance of the individual narrative, respecting the gift of life we all have and tapping into our useful and essential role of social responsibility within our own lifetime, so that our voice is not lost in the noise, but becomes part of the chorus. Isn't that what we're all striving for? A sense of harmony, belonging, purpose, validation through doing, through participating to a certain extent. So, my name is John Reeves, and I have a furniture design company called Reeves Design. And I'm here to tell my story, a journey of a young graduate designer who by chance of consequence, luck, and essentially tenacity, recognized a spark of opportunity and ran with it. Just as the late great Robin Williams said, you're only given a little spark of madness, so don't lose it. So, well, perhaps, how do we recognize that spark? And how do we fan that spark into a flame if we are lucky enough to even notice? So in my efforts, I strive towards creating timeless design, which is not necessarily trend-driven, and if I could summarize it, it's somehow projecting a sentimental connection to stuff, okay? So, and during my design degree, I studied three-dimensional design at Northumbria University, which incidentally is a fantastic design uni which allows for really hands-on creative exploration in materials and processes, where it's possible to learn by directly engaging in a workshop that essentially, for me, was like a mini factory. And I was able to visit various contemporary trade shows and events within Europe as well. This included visiting the Milan Salone and the various satellite exhibitions in New York, Stockholm's Young Designers event called the Greenhouse, and London Design Week. This was very formative and informative, allowing me a glimpse at the stresses and strains of launching new product. I mean, who knew it could be so hard, right? So, how best to present it was an important thing to learn, and ensure a useful and desirable product is being brought to the public. It became pretty apparent to me, and if you look around, maybe to you too, that furniture is a saturated industry, with design spanning back hundreds of years, if not millennia, if you go back to the Egyptians. And so to continue with this drive to pursue new forms and styles, you know, to what end? Why do we do it? Throughout the last 150 years, since the Industrial Revolution and post-arts and crafts, there has been a fever to mechanize and make greater efficiencies on production and process, stripping back the aesthetic styles in favor of a simpler detail that caters more towards the machine age. Modernist styles pioneered in the Bauhaus were all functional and affordable designs with a purity of restrained aesthetic that just worked. The styles that prevailed followed the mantra of form follows function, and the rigor of self-censoring in order to ensure logical and efficient production, and inevitably this had a restraining effect on designs. The process allowed glimpses at possibilities of new forms, but a more industrial aesthetic prevailed. So I don't want this to become a potted history of contemporary design. However, from this point on, the styles became more truth to materials, restrained to the point of becoming so minimal there was almost a clinical sterility to many contemporary designs. From my sensitive perspective, it was hard to see where the sense of identity was and individuality was, and the human nature of our condition was playing second fiddle to process, production, and the minimal lines. On visiting these trade fairs, it was hard to see the difference sometimes between which brand was Italian, which one was German, Scandinavian, and even British, all competing to be most minimal, streamlined, and basic in form and aesthetic. So it's probably important to mention that this was back in 2004, 2003, when I was starting to explore these places. Coming back home at that time, there was even a famous TV commercial for IKEA. I don't know if people remember it, but it celebrated the notion of chuck out your chintz. Chintz being anything that had connotations of being old, perhaps what we might associate unfairly with granny chic. The advert encouraged people to throw their old furniture without considering or acknowledging the family heritage and sentimental value out the window to be smashed into a skip or dumpster below, all while singing the ridiculous ditty, chuck out your chintz. The final pan and scan of the house showed that newly transformed space into a white and clean Scandinavian IKEA aesthetic everywhere. Any student that studied in the early 2000s will remember that cookie-cutter IKEA-clad student housing, functional and useful to a point, but without much individual variety and arguably without too much durability. A practical solution, but one that had a cultural cost. It seemed to me that this universal blanket-clad solution was rolled out even in the mid to higher-end brands too, and my reaction was to ask, why couldn't there be a contemporary design range that had a voice of today, which could also sit in harmony alongside pieces that were perhaps family heirlooms as well? It almost seemed symptomatic in the West of the focus on youth and the relative neglect of the older generations that would be carted off to the old people's home once they were unable to fend for themselves. Out with the old, in with the new. In my house, growing up, I was fortunate enough to live with grandparents from both my mother's side and my dad's side at different times. So that's some of them. And that gave me a great insight into the riches to be found by sharing time with people across the generations. It seemed to me that if a contemporary or newly designed piece of furniture could somehow have even a fraction of that sentimental value that a piece that had been passed down and lived with, you know, those stories of hiding under the dining table or inside the living room cabinet when you were small enough to crawl inside, and we were all small enough to crawl inside at one point. Don't forget that. But it's amazing how quickly we do. And indeed, look here, that's me on the right and my brother on the left, inside the family sideboard and dresser when we were growing up. And again, oh, that's me. That's my sister. And now we come up to date, and last year, this is my nephew, my sister's son, Alexander. Same chest of drawers. You know, you can't put a price on that kind of, value. So, you know, if somehow, as designers, we could extract the essence of what creates an attachment and a fondness to a piece, a furniture or object, and imbue that into the new designs, wouldn't that be special? Celebrating that human contact, that human touch. However, I have to admit that this could potentially end up coming across as merely an artificial, contrived approach that may not be possible. And perhaps that value is only something that gathers sentimental worth, rather like a patina that builds up over time. I was interested by visiting antique shops and junk shops to discover how designs and the materials that they were made out of age, both in style and from a durable patina and wear and tear point of view. It was clear that a lot of older products were made using solid timbers and good quality materials. Undeniably, they were still being resold 50 plus years later. Perhaps something that couldn't be said from a lot of modern product being put out today. I thought that perhaps there's a story in here, and set about buying some of the more affordable, cheaper pieces, and using the blade of the saw as a graphic line, I was able to cut into these older found pieces and reveal cross sections and contours that were otherwise hidden behind the overhanging apron at the tabletop or the stretcher rails, cutting revealed, fresh, clean, wood, contrasted against the old patina finish of the uncut surface. So you had that new, clean, fresh cut against that old sort of patinaed and used surface. So it had that contrast and juxtaposition. So it was almost, it felt like I was literally and metaphorically taking something from the past and splitting it open to create something new. Almost striking history along the seam and revealing the hidden possibilities that allow my contemporary voice to exchange a dialogue and conversation with the past. And this exploration of process and concept then took on another level when I realized that I could potentially produce my own traditional turned spindle leg of a profile I'd created and then split that into 4 quarters, rather like splitting a log. This would reveal the clean line of the split surface, that freshly revealed an internal corner and the cross section of the profile. Each of the 4 legs could then be inverted and brought to the corner of the tabletop, thus creating a contemporary form that echoed tradition and paid homage to heritage. I quickly set to and made a sample, and this eureka moment and the process I explored and developed created a very satisfying and pleasing form. It captured in part the essence of that homage to tradition whilst having a voice of today, and that became the Louis collection. And in fact, you can see here on the lathe that spindle leg being turned, and then just propped up against the lathe there are 4 quarters that have been split, and then below you'll notice that the finished table is made from that one turning, and those legs have been inverted from that single turning. So literally splitting open the past to create something new. You might also notice that this has been copied a lot over the years, but this is where it began. So, I mean, moving on, I don't know who coined the phrase, leave nothing but trails and take nothing but memories, but it's in reference to visiting the great outdoors. However, the next part of my journey took me to Vietnam, far from the confines of northern England, where I'm from Morecambe Bay. I was given a job as design developer and as an extra pair of eyes and ears as well on the ground for a brand based in London called Julian Chichester, and they had a sister company that produced over in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. And it was clear that as a designer I needed to learn the ropes and to be close to production, otherwise I was going to be rather like a boat without water, pretty useless. And just before embarking, I was actually contacted by the pretty revered and famous benchmark shop of British furniture retail, Heels, and they'd seen my quartered leg in additive design at some point in around Europe, and they insisted on calling me in so we could talk. And it seemed to strike at the core of what they were about and what they wanted to express. They were and continue to be a contemporary focused design shop. However, because they've been doing it since 1810, they have over 200 years of archived contemporary designs, each one kept on file at the Victoria and Albert Museum. I was asked to develop a coffee table, a console table, and a side table for them in this new split leg technique. And I mentioned that I was heading over to Vietnam to work at a factory production over there, and asked if they would mind if I developed it whilst over. I also had to ask my newfound boss, Julian, if he would mind me developing my own product on the side. And luckily he had no issue with that, and said that of course I would be bored if I didn't pursue some of my own work, and even offered to help me ship back in his containers the samples that I was able to create and explore. So, that's part of what brought me to start Reeves Design. I created this methodology, if you like, of trying to explore a concept and then unpack that in a contemporary way. So my voice had a connection with, a lineage of design development, that history of design. I felt that, throughout modernism, we'd got to a point of minimalism that had created a blank canvas, and it was allowing us to paint on it again. Perhaps put a bit more of that human touch, a bit more poetry back into some of the work. We could argue that form follows function, but isn't, taking care of our emotional side is also just as much a function as, having a comfortable seat to sit upon. So having that connect with what makes you feel at home is important. And not just as designers, we have a responsibility because we're the sort of gatekeepers to the future of the potential culture that is revealed through the things we make. I don't know who said, if you make it, they will come. I think it was coined by the guy who built the Eden Project in a book called Monkey Business. But I mean, it's true. If designers design it, it will get made. And if it gets made, it's going to go into people's homes and it's going to steer them in a certain, creative way. So we do have an opportunity to own that narrative and engage it with the stories that are important and need to be addressed. And I think, whilst products and efficiency of production, price point and all that is a very important factor in process, I think also looking beyond that to the soul, to the spirit of what these pieces end up becoming. There's a reason why if somebody is familiar to a place and goes there very often, they become part of the furniture. So the things that we have in our homes literally are part of the furniture. So they need to be considered carefully. That responsibility towards directing the public choice is important. We are responsible towards the materials and the precious resources that we were able to work with. Where possible, I try to use recycled or certainly sustainable materials. And again, just to touch upon what I said at the beginning, I would always try and strive to open that design brief with an objective to design for a timeless look or quality. It's not trend driven, it's not built-in obsolescence in that sense. So, in fact, back in 2011, I printed some catalogues, and I had the opportunity to either print 500 for a relatively high price, or 2,000 for a better unit price. And so I decided I'll print out 2,000, but I made the mistake of putting redesign 2004 to 2012 because it was the 2012 edition. And I've still got about 600 of those catalogues left. But it's a chunky book, so I've been giving them out ever since, with the additional new designs as postcards that are added within the book and then handed out. And you could say, well, that's a bit of a mistake. Why would you have a catalogue which is 5 years old? But to a certain extent, there's a testimony towards the timelessness of the design. But it's still that catalogue, if you like, is still bought. People still engage with it. People still react to it. And as a young and emerging company, even though I've been doing this for 12 years, it takes a while before you gain some kind of market traction. People take you seriously. There's nothing wrong with standing by your best work and bringing it to the fore time and time again, and really endorsing it. And people buy what they see, and they fall in love with something that they see more often, and you hammer it home. There's a sense of sincerity and integrity behind, valuing what you do, rather than just, anxiously and nervously creating something for the market and then moving on pretty quickly if it doesn't work out. Luckily, most of the pieces that have been introduced have done relatively well. But having said that, I didn't expect 12 years ago when I went to Vietnam to be there 12 years later. I didn't expect that Reeves Design would not just be a design company, but also be managing a supply chain and creating the product and supplying the product and then bringing it to market and kind of doing the whole thing. But within that, there's a creative control which allows a more interesting exploration of the concepts of the methodology at work within my design approach. So I had, once again, a unique opportunity that not everybody has, and there's a responsibility in that too. Just because I know that other people haven't got it, people often can use design as a sort of marketing tool or something to add value, to say, oh, that's designer made, or it's something that's thought about just to give it that extra twist at the end. But actually, I think good design should be thought through from as I say, from a conceptual level through to material selection, through to how it's going to be made, how it's going to be received in people's homes, and how it's going to stand that test of time. So it's going to be there, standing along with the antiques of the, becoming antiques of the future, if you like, but standing alongside, maybe something that's been particularly precious in your home, or you picked up and it has some kind of sentimental value and worth. And there's nothing wrong with having treasured items that can be made yesterday and 100 years ago. And I think that's important to recognise. But as a young independent designer doing all this, I've got to say that I recognise the importance of collaboration. Collaboration with my buyers. So I've been fortunate enough, as I say, to work with Heels, who picked me up when I was 24 years old. In fact, on this one, I don't know if you can see it, but they came up with a great campaign, Lust As You Dust, and this was on all the shop windows. They created this magazine advertisement that was in Elle Decoration and Living, etc., and all the different ones. But for about 6 years, it was always printed with, created by contemporary British, 24-year-old British designer John Reeves. So I've been immortalised as a 24-year-old British designer. It was on the side of London buses with 24-year-old British designer John Reeves, and it was pretty extraordinary. But they saw something in it that they got behind the concept, and they got behind the idea that investing in young designers and new designers, doesn't have to be young, but just something that's new and emerging, and taking a chance on being innovative at that time. As I say, probably being copied a lot now, so you've seen it around, but they were investing in the culture of design and setting a stronger foundation, which allows us to endure and stay relevant. And it helps them look valid too. So there's a win-win. And as they expand and help me climb that sort of profile ladder, I also reach out to the factories on the other side. So as a designer, design is about communication. We're communicating the narrative, the concept of the product, how it's made, and your methodology, however you might want to do it. These articles tell a particular story, yours will tell your own. Which is meaningful for the buyers and for the consumers. But equally, you have to engage with that communication to the makers. And living cross-culturally as I do in Vietnam, and maybe there's many designers here, we're in Singapore after all, we have to create a dialogue from the production end as well. So I find that a very interesting course of development, working with the local Vietnamese factories, up to working with the collaborations with Square Roots, who I've done a range with, just most recently for this show, which we did the Farm Made collection. So, and then, that's me at the Victoria and Albert Museum when this product won the award. My dad found that really rather funny, that it was the table was exhibited in front of The Healing of the Lame Man, which is a Raphael painting. I think he thought that spoke volumes about me. That's in the back packing area of Heels. I was probably 24, just turning 24 in that picture. Looked like a little I don't know, sand troll or something, sat cross-legged in the packing area. That's where it all started. So to take that concept to new heights, we did even a full poster bed. I think it ended up being about 40 different pieces in that collection, and it's still sold today. This is something we've developed just to introduce a little bit of newness for the 10-year anniversary. So we have an ombre gradient color, and then an oak and a matte black. These are the guys that I was talking about. Some of the people that have helped me get this going in Vietnam. Perhaps the story would have taken a different path altogether if I hadn't taken that, avenue, that opportunity back in 2004 and gone to Vietnam. And these guys could have been from somewhere else. But I think once you've started, there is a sense of loyalty and responsibility to each other to keep things going, and we've enjoyed 10 wonderful years with this particular factory until now, developing not just the lacquer but sand cast aluminium, which you saw at the beginning, and we're doing solid wood, which you'll see on the booth over there if you come over, and the team has grown, and it's a joy to be a part of that sort of microcosm, and from a young age till now being sort of, I don't know, leader of it to a certain extent. They're doing what I designed, so I take that, and we went with what we've got. So the product is made to the best of our abilities and designed with a sense of drama and concept. But perhaps we don't always have the best locations for photo shoots. So this was a fun idea to just shoot the product within the factory. So you have this repeat of the arch within the aqueduct bookcase, which was based on the old Roman aqueducts, and then also you've got this very nice but very simple vernacular style of the old saws, which also have this echoed arch, and it creates a very evocative piece. And again, stack of wood shavings on the floor. This is something that we did for the catalogue 6 or 7 years ago, and it's it works. So you might say, well, lots of brands have done that, but when you have the obligation to take care of the total process, you've got to think on your feet sometimes and get the best output and presentation that you can do within any given time. So this ended up becoming part of that catalogue, which has represented the brand very well over the last few years, and essentially kept me going from 24 until, as I say, 36, and evolving the company as we go. This is, when I get back home, I like to go to the countryside, so I'm rather taken with exploring nature, and that comes apparent in the next collection, which we're doing a lot of organic forms. Just as looking at human nature and those shades of tradition and echoes of heritage, this is paying homage to the roots and the forms that you find perhaps in the gnarled branches of a beautiful oak tree, or taking in isolation some vines or something sinuousy. I don't know who that guy is, but anyway, there he is. So we've got lounge chairs. So this is all new, and then we've got riffing on. It's so good it's dancing for you. It's riffing on the same concept of the aqueduct, but you can see that is almost like a coliseum. The idea that books are almost like the font of knowledge, and aqueducts carry water. So there's a sort of link there. So you can sit within your cozy little nook and read away. Some marble tables. Various ones. I'm actually trying to get to another picture, but I'll just explain these as we're going. This shows, it's called the Talon collection. You can see very clearly that central pedestal bar table has got what looks to me like a claw, and that is the initial concept. That it becomes like the claw of an eagle or a talon of a hawk. So here again, just playing with that sort of evocative iconography, imagery. Talon round table. This was a collaboration, if you like. It was part of a larger brief that was a penthouse for a customer that decided in an old-fashioned sense almost to become a patron of my work, and he was asking for various pieces to be developed so he could slot them into his personal penthouse, and he wanted a card table. So then I created this based on the initial talent concept, and it became a very nice piece. It's also just a round table with 4 drawers. And then he wanted chairs with arms, so that was developed, and it all slotted back into the broader range and catalogue. So again, it's sort of using the resources that are available to you to make the most of the opportunities you have. And I think when you're young and emerging, and you don't have investment and backers and all the rest of it, you've got to run with what you can get, and there's nothing wrong with creating anything. It doesn't matter if it's 2 pieces or a run of 102 pieces. You put the same amount of effort in, that 2 pieces can become a run or a part of the product line, such as this has become part of the product line. So it's always worth putting your best effort into whatever you create. Again, that was the same project. Credenzas that were for this private house, and now they're part of the collection. Small ones as well, and the mirror with the talent claw. These are the broader spectrum of the chairs, the full range, bar chairs, and we've done restaurants and bistros as well with that. And then we took it outdoors, so this is all sand cast. So again, it's looking at, you know, when you put product outdoor, what's going to happen? It's going to age, it's going to weather, it's going to be under the rain, snow, sleet. So I created, I wanted to make this product as durable as possible. Some people complain it's quite heavy, but you know, I want this stuff to be around for a long time. It's certainly not going to blow off the roof. But that's all recycled out of old engine blocks from motorbike, scooters, and what have you. And it's sand cast, so we're also engaging with craftspeople that are maintaining a traditional form of production, which not everywhere can do. To my surprise, it's something that the factories that I've been working with have kept alive, you know, in part due to my exploration of the process and just using it a lot. Vietnam seems to be able to do that very well. And then we keep the texture of the sand in the casting, so it has a stone-like quality. As it's for outdoors, that ages very sympathetically, and it sort of patinas more over time, and it feels and looks a bit like a washed with a pebble. So it's got a nice synergy with its location in the garden. And then, Ed will be happy about this because this was a collaboration. Square Roots, you might have seen in Hall 3, 5, even, are a fantastic company. They have very strong values in the way they create their product, restrained, limited by, you know, just a very pure approach to understanding wood. In fact, you might not take too much of offence if you could spend a good 30 minutes or an hour talking to Justin Wheatcroft about how to get the best yield out of a plank of oak. He could probably tell you how many chopsticks you could cut out of it if you asked. He's very knowledgeable on that. And not to be outdone, Ed, I've been told, can give you up to at least 300 different patinas on various metals and bring those onto the oak as well. So what I liked about what they do is it's a very pure, honest approach. It's it's got that iconic sort of truth to materials mantra, just keeping it completely solid. And I was keen to get an opportunity to explore this. I was delighted when they asked me, and being British as well, and being British myself, you know, living far away from home. When we do get to go back, we can appreciate, you know, home like never before. You know, you live through your memories, which designers often do in any case. It becomes a repository of ideas. So going back, coming from the north of England, these are scattered around the country though. You have farm gates, fences, which is said, for me, they're like the furniture of the fields. And each frame is framing the landscape beyond, and the British landscape is some of the best in the world. You have to look at Constable or Turner to know that. So it made sense that this is, you know, quite iconic to say solid wood, solid oak. It's tough enough to stay outdoors, and that very vernacular, raw hardware that farmers use to create latches and catches and hinges and exposed hardware is just very pragmatic, very direct. A strong contact with, it's obvious, it does what it does. And I thought that was just a very honest, style that could be really celebrated with the Square Roots aesthetic and values. So we created the Farm Gate collection, which ended up being almost like a, if I was to coin an awful term, it might be refined rustic. So we have, this is 100% totally solid oak. There's not a stitch of fiberboard or plywood in there. And then we have, tufted leather with a really soft, spongy, feathered cushions, on a chair. So it's, you know, you really feel like it's almost like coming home. It's quite a cozy range. There's something very satisfying about that, you know, farm gate cabinet as well, and the diagonal sashes on the console table with the very useful double layer console and side table as well. So it's trying to roll out that concept to become a complete range. So it's, you know, not timidly just introducing one piece, but going for a collection. And there's more that can be done with this. You know, so you know, using nicely made, but again, you know, harking back and paying homage in respect to those very vernacular latches and catches of the farm gates. Typical, simple, sort of half lap mirror joints. So collaboration is important. We can't do everything. So, you know, it's just trying to find the people that we like to work with and somehow make that happen. And recognizing the values and through that bring some worth to the product, which is appreciated not just by the brands but by the broader public. So some of the talent pieces here in a restaurant that we did in Ho Chi Minh City. It's a boutique hotel, and the outdoor cast aluminium with the teak slats around the swimming pool there. So it brings a little bit of organic playfulness indoors, and it allows you know, it's a bit of an investment, but it creates a very unique space, and it breaks up the straight lines of the concrete walls to an almost, you know, you can almost imagine it's looking through the branches of a wooded area in isolation. And this being you know, just to represent the collaborations that we also have on the other side with our newest customers. So what's been interesting for me over the last 4 years doing Singapore was getting to know the Asian market, which is not somewhere I'd considered exploring, being from the UK, having that early experience selling to Heels in London, and then being able to sell to America as well pretty strongly. It hadn't been an option to expose to Asia, and you know, I could get in trouble for saying this, but you know, there are connotations of the risk of copying and that kind of thing. But as the years have gone on, I've been really pleased to know that there are companies like this one is Mohor, which have shops in Beijing and Shanghai, and they're opening new ones all the time. And they really do get behind and celebrate the brands that they represent. They're rather tired of being seen as China being the copying nation, and they want to recognise that they can champion boutique brands or bigger brands and help them grow just as much as anybody else. So I've been really heartened to work with them, and we've got a good representation there. I know Square Roots do as well, District 8 and Nelcott, a few other friends. So that's been really nice. I can see we have another opportunity within Korea as well. My friend Mr. Mani here, opening the first Reeves design showroom in Gangnam in Seoul, and there's you know, we're at the cusp of something exciting happening. So I hope it's not being too indulgent, sort of talking about my story and giving you a sort of like background of who I am, and how I've got here, and some of the product that's on display. You know, this is not exhaustive, but it gives you a taste. And I suppose, yeah, we're here to celebrate the culture of design and get amongst it and be a part of it, and encourage each other, but in the right way. And I think you know, with the people we select to collaborate with, that really helps maintain that integrity. So yeah, so ultimately design's about communication. So I hope I've transferred something of interest to you all. Perhaps not, but at least maybe it's been a little bit motivating to see you know, how a little guy like me could do it. So if I can do it, perhaps others can. No excuses, by the way. So yeah, and I suppose like the red thread that runs through all my works I would hope is a sincere approach to the process, and revealing and peeling back the layers. To use a wood terminology, you could say it's almost like peeling back the layers to count the annual rings and recognise that the work must stand up to the strong history of good quality design, which projects an evocative and thoughtful narrative that others can engage and connect with. So I hope we can all continue to engage and connect with good design moving forward. Not just mine, there's a lot of it out there. But thank you. Any questions? No? Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm really like
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. In Australia, we have had lots of companies like yours, and they've all done the same thing. Actually, it's sort of now they're coming, not yet until now. So now we've got people coming back, but nobody's pushed them up yet. Yeah, I mean, we're open for business, that's for sure. And as I say, like what we do, what we have is what you can buy into, or we can develop something for you. That's what. Yeah. I'm just going to stop this because it's recording.